svima. Počinjemo prvi panel dometi planovi za reformu zakona o finansiranju političkih subjekata i izbornih kampanja. Sa nama su Branka Bošnjak, potpredsjednica Skupštine Crne Gore i poslanica Demokratskog fronta redova Pokreta za promjene, Milun Zogović, također Demokratski front Nova, Momo Koprivica, izvinjavam se.
So then Momo Koprivica from Demokratska Crna Gora, Miodrag Lekić from Demos, MP, Genci, Nimanbegu from Albanian list. Welcome here. Thank you for being with us. The first question, we've been looking forward for quite a while to the new parliamentary elections, and we are waiting also for the power for incumbency to change. We got the opinion from Venice Commission, the Constitutional Court is incomplete, and then the question: did you, in running up to the necessary parliamentary elections, are you ready to change, to amend the law on financing political parties, which was adopted exclusively by the representatives of former incumbency? It was criticized by months by international organizations, and you, as MPs in opposition at the time, also pinpointed to the fact that the law has lots of loopholes, that it gives way to lots of dodgy funding for political parties. But now that you are in power, you've been pretty silent about that. Are you ready in run-up to the new election cycles to change the rules in this regard? A question for you. First of all, let me salute all of you, and I want to congratulate you for the 15th conference. Thank you, Mans, for your persistence. Sometimes you give us hard time, but I want to say that commend your good work and grit. And I want to say that the corruption, as American ambassador said, is a cancer, where it was compared to cancer. Which is to say that our country is under heavy burden of this ailment, and political corruption being the most important part of that. I often mentioned that we have together agreed about the whole set of electoral laws. With a big difference that for many of these laws you need qualified majority, whereas for this one you would need 41 votes in the parliament, so you are in position to do it. So now that you have come close to the funds, has that pacified you or silenced you not to do something now that you are in position to do so? Yes, we have established the work group that works on the entire set of electoral laws, and only one being the umbrella law that is to be adopted by qualified majority, whereas other pieces of legislation within this set of laws is to be adopted by pure majority. So this was criticized by incumbency and opposition, and we wanted to we wanted to adopt it together and to agree upon the amendments and changes, and we had trouble about that. However, I want to say that some laws have been coming into its final stage. Now we don't have the president of that working group, because Sahinja Bulajic, who in the meantime resigned, was the head of that working group. And I insisted as the vice president of the parliament that we should nevertheless continue our work on that. So, and as you rightly put it, to transform into actions and results everything that we talked about. So you don't have DPS, you can't find excuses any longer, or and do it on the pretext that DPS is a guest, and so. Why should you hesitate? So Petar, we have to draw a difference here to distinguish between things. These are the conclusions agreed at the collegium session, Parliament collegium session, where we decide how to go about things, and we see that we have to do it together. I insist all the time, though, that before the elections we have to have the law where which I led, that is the law on residence, so that we don't have the Shavnik case any longer, because if we have parliamentary elections, we will have Shavnik everywhere, Shavnik case everywhere, because everyone liked and saw how they could block the process, and very many election players might find it worthwhile. So I fear that through this mechanism we would have the similar situation elsewhere. So, for example, we have diaspora issue, and whether they were to be allowed to vote or not, because by law they need to have at least 2 years of 2-year residence before elections, and we are not sure that they could meet those conditions. And I fully agree with you, and I think we should do so it's not up to me only, but what I do is I insist, and I have my colleagues from the collegium that I always insist on that, and that I insist on bringing it to a close, so that to finalize those laws. So today we will have again the meeting of the representatives of party clubs, parliamentary party clubs. I want to send a message to them from here that we should reach consensus, and that we should start addressing this chaos, and let's not speaking from the party trenches. So I hope that they will have a good session and good outcome, and I want to send my personal appeal that we should get this job done and make an agreement. Mr. Zogović, there were comments and objections that when you were in opposition, where you said that when you criticize this legislation adopted during the DPS incumbency, you know that there were other institutions involved overseeing the whole process, and since you have now the issue with controversial law on president, and we have the Venice Commission helping, and we don't have a constitutional court, why didn't you focus on this? What stopped you from doing that? Do you have any rational reason? While you were in opposition, you were requesting this or that. Now, when you are incumbency, when you are in power, you give it up. I remember Brano Mandić, who described Predrag Drecun like this, who was in opposition, and he said that he was asking where the money are, and then he became a member of the management in Branka, found the money, and then stopped talking at all, stopped mentioning that. First of all, I would not call the law on president, on amending the law on president, controversial. I think that this is a response to President Đukanović's move, and he didn't exercise his constitutional duties to appoint the candidate for the prime minister that majority of MPs, legitimate MPs, proposed, because these parties won elections in October 2020.
As for your question, it's okay because the arguments are quite strong, but I want to tell you that in the everyday life, there are few topics that have been discussed more and worked less than this set of electoral legislation. I think that the rules that should define that everybody should participate in should be jointly adopted. We have a body which is called Committee for the Amendments to the Electoral Legislation. But we thought that, as the previous panelists pointed out, you two, that for only one legal text you need a two-thirds majority, while the others can be adopted with a simple majority. So the idea is to adopt all these pieces of legislation through the committee with two-thirds majority. Unfortunately, this committee has not been very active, and I must say I'm sorry that they didn't justify the trust, and that we have now the problem that all the future elections will be held with the same problems in place. We are fully ready to start, if there is no goodwill by the opposition of Montenegro Parliament. As we are 41, although we should all participate in the amendments to this law, at least the 41 of us should, on the basis of what we discussed and promised to the citizens, amend the law on financing of political parties. How can we be sure, based on what you've been telling us, is not just a story, but because after the change of the government, it's 3-decade government, we still have mass employment. We have state companies full of employees. We have police officers in prison who come from the list of particular parties. Before the elections, there were social benefits paid from the budget reserves. In my program, you complained about these things when you were the opposition. Now you took over the same practice based on the regulations adopted by DPS. So you have taken over all the bad mechanisms or bad practices of DPS. Is that the reason why you didn't rush into the amendments of this law? Because the roles have changed and now you can use the benefits of the solutions that you thought negative in the past. In my private life, I didn't speak specifically about you, I spoke on a general level. Well, I try to be responsible when I express my personal party positions. I want to say that there are reasons that somebody may have such a perception about the current parliamentary majority. The political entity that I belong to was prevented from participating in the government based on the electoral results on the 30th of August, and that they started talking about index employment and so on. But I want to say that for 3 decades, party membership was the ground for employment. And now, it may be theatrical to say, but we have the situation which a part of Montenegro in the previous 3 decades was employed based on their party affiliation. And now, in the public calls for employment organized by the new majorities and new majority and their people who lead different companies or are in high positions, now we have the situation that people who could not get the job in the previous 3 decades now apply for these jobs. They were deprived of their fundamental right to work because they didn't want to accept the membership of the then ruling party. And now, when these people feel that they have freedom, they're entitled to work, and now they participate in public calls. But we cannot neglect the employment procedures, and that is the new Montenegro that you were promising. I don't say that there are no abuses, but what I'm saying is a predominant context. People who could not get a job because they were not party members, now they feel free to apply for jobs. You don't cure these problems with budget reserves. Mr. Koprivica, the range of criticisms refer to party employment using money from budget reserves, all these stories that the public has been aware of. So can you give us a specific promise? Who will launch the initiative? What will you specifically do to get these amendments before the elections? Because some elections have already been done or organized in accordance with the previous rules that you criticized. Thank you. I wish to greet all of you. Thanks for the invitation to Mons, and congratulations on the 15th conference. Thank you for giving
Dakle, hvala kolega. Ovo je jedna veoma značajna tema I volio bih da...
This is an important topic and an opportunity to open numerous issues. You mentioned payments from the budget reserves. In this report on financing local elections for 2022, on page 20, we have that the amendment was adopted regarding review of the budget, which enables payments to physical persons from budget reserves, but it says it cannot be done to physical persons except payments based on judicial decisions or based on the damages caused by elementary or natural disasters. I proposed this amendment personally. So we didn't use the funds from the budget reserve. This prohibition was actually defined by the government that we do not participate in. And the government abused these budget reserves. And we proposed this prohibition that was put in the review of the budget, which prevented payments from budget reserves. Mons already did some surveys before this amendment was implemented. Before that, there were huge abuses, especially at the beginning of September. And the Minister of Finance should be held accountable. We didn't support that previous government. We voted against the government. The party that I belong to did not participate in the 42nd government, so we didn't participate in decisions on any use of budget reserves. The fact is that you participated in forming the 43rd government. It was formed based on the will of citizens. But we didn't have the opportunity in 2022 to propose anything because we don't participate in that government either. We proposed the draft law on financing political entities and the 43rd government that we haven't participated in, that we haven't supported, proposed the amendments to the law on financing political entities and electoral campaigns that was adopted in August in a scandalous way. Why? It was voted for by DPS and partnership parties of DPS, SNP and Jura, and it defined suspensions of prohibitions by the 23rd of August, but that they were not into force since April when the elections were called, but since the 23rd of August. The Constitutional Court established that the elections were unconstitutionally called. So these provisions, new provisions, were entered into force as of the 23rd of August, starting from the amendments that we proposed in 2019, and we submitted a set of amendments then on the prohibition on donations by legal entities or the amounts paid by physical persons, because there were a lot of abuses there. The money was collected from some grey funds. And it happened that a person who had, for example, a monthly salary of 200 euro gave donations in the amount of 2,000 euro. So we proposed an amendment based on which a physical person could donate very small amounts of money in order to control the donations, but it was not accepted. What has been done, I don't think that the Committee for Electoral Reforms has not been functional. As for us, I think it would be crucial to reform the legal framework regarding financing political parties and electoral campaigns. As a political party, we are known to have very low amounts of donations coming from physical persons. These are some members, party members, and the percentage of those donations is between 1 and 2%. What I want to say is that And please conclude. In 2019, we proposed a set of solutions for those elections, including the provisions to the law or amendments to the law on financing political entities and electoral campaigns, and we are still supporting that provision. The NGOs, MANS, and the civil sector, and their proposals regarding this law, referring to better transparency, political cards, prohibition from financing from abroad, are absolutely supported by us to the full. We are ready to vote for them and incorporate them into the law. Every single recommendation that they provide. Thank you.
Mr. Lekić, is this one of the major problems or issues after the famous 30th August 2020? Is this indicative that the impression that the former opposition now grab the lucrative platforms of the former incumbency? Something that was so rotten until yesterday now becomes fully okay. Yes, there are some DPS practices that were taken up. Somewhere they were even brought to a higher level. So now we have the very pretty abnormal situation that those who won the elections didn't form government like they do in normal countries, but they do. They have some experiments where that we see now, and this is not a pretext for doing anything. We have to do something about corruption in a pretext for not doing something about corruption here. So MANS that is why you remember the most terrible criticisms and affairs that were targeted at them as orchestrated by former incumbency. But I want to say MANS is still around, giving us a hard time, keeping us on track with this. We used to be, nicknamed Tiger in the Balkans, the front runners, and so. But I don't think it's the same now, and if that stood the test of time, let me go back to a question. Now we don't have a choice between one good and bad solution. We now have to choose between two equally bad solutions. So in order to have regular elections. So Montesquieu used to say the uncontrolled power has an inclination to narrow the scope of activities in society. So what we have is the result of that. So this is global phenomenon, as one of the diplomats mentioned. This is not consoling fact, and this should not serve as an excuse. We have that. We saw lots of cases of high-profile corruption cases being prosecuted. There are cases where heads of states resigned because of some even trifle matters. Yes, yes. So there is a case of one minister of speed driving, and he was sanctioned afterwards. So this is what the developed countries do. We have come into situation or a position where we have to do something. What would be your concrete contribution?
Bez uvrede, ne mislim ni vas, ni gospodina Zogovića, ali puno puta dobijemo obećanje, hoćemo.
So, well, what are you going to do? Yeah, you make promises and then nothing happens. No, this is not an excuse. We had lived through experiment. I don't know which incumbency was worse than which. Was it for 42nd or 43rd? Yes. You know, and then we all feel responsible for that. We have to change the law. It was progress in a way to come up with proposals to amend, and we need to give it a thorough reading. One issue is what the parties can take from can get from the budget to fund their election activities. We should discuss how big this budget share should be. To be allocated for that. And I believe that we are going to have a special panel about the problems in applying the law. And then we come up with an issue that is not ripe in this society. And I will give my contribution to that as someone who plays in a team. Party members, so there should now be no partisan employments in state-owned companies or else, and we should not invent the wheel in this. We should copy the cases and the models of developed democracies. So a majority that wins elections reflect majority in the parliament. They should have their representatives in the government, of course. So the parties will still have an impact on leading the country. But I'm not saying that the fact that no one from my party has fielded a job in the government, and then I take pride in that. I want to say that what the effect of what we got is that we had already had an ineffective, cumbersome government, and then we just repeat that. We make it bigger and more cumbersome. And we see the young people having aspirations to fill the government job, and there are very few ones who would take their own initiative or who do that and develop in an entrepreneurial way. So this leads to government degeneracy. And then we have come into the situation where people sit in Venice to decide about the case in Shavnik. an isolated townlet in the north. So how do we travel from Shamnik to Venice by gondolas? No. This is the situation. We see, yeah, your argument. You have 4-1, and you should do something. You should amend law. So why can't we consider another thing? 41 enough to do the law, and 40 enough, not enough to form a government. So we have the case where a parliamentary majority cannot form the government because there are some meddlers who stand in the way, and if so, and there is no argumentation, and if the blockage was caused by and this bottleneck is caused by the fact that I'm not nominated for the prime minister, for someone who will form the government, that I will stand out of way to unblock the process. However, there are lots of hurdles and bottlenecks. I've been in diplomacy for a long time, and I know how important the international community is. However, we can't find pretexts and excuses referring to external sources. We should not let ourselves stay idle while waiting for someone else to do the job. Well, yeah, let's wait and see what happens. And yes, you have the mathematic formula where you say that 41 can pass a law, but 41 cannot form a government. So you said that 41 majority 41 votes, and you see that we are waiting for standing in for elections, long awaited. The elections. The question is not whether or not to have elections, extraordinary elections, but who should lead the country in the period of transition. So I can't find name for the present government, which has the DPS staff inside in the government. And how legitimate are they? This is a novelty in political practice. The previous administration has not gone while the others in the place. So we need to know some deadlines by which the things should happen, or we should let the show go on and on.
There have been a lot of topics open, so help yourself. I wish to thank Tumans. I used the opportunity to express my political positions that have been somehow summarized quite well by our moderator, or journalist Komnenić. I'm always the journalist. What is important? I'll try to just touch upon several topics, sticking to what I've been speaking for a long time, and that is that nothing in life is black and white. We live in a society that does not experience democracy the way it should. MPs, the media, NGOs have a very amateur approach in their work. Why am I saying this? Let me just draw a parallel to something mentioned before. I think that months I can spend thousands of euros of our money because of the number of letters or requests they send to us. Our employees work on all these requests. They reply these requests. And I'm pleased that my party has so far received positive opinions, double positive opinions from the anti-corruption agency. So it's a minor party with 2 or 3 employees only. But we provide answers, replies to requests. Very few people point out that such a minor party has done the job of big parties. Yesterday, I was at the Parliament of Montenegro, where we discussed the allocation of flats to public officials. My freedom to talk about it cost me 100,000 euro. My freedom to be in this room, if I had pretended like others, and let's say I didn't get, if I had applied for a flat, I would have probably got it, but I didn't apply for it. Now I live as a tenant in my father's house, but I didn't apply for the flat. These are the things that we need to point out in the society, how you take, how seriously you take your responsibilities. These matters are important into our society. The 13th or the 14th government of Montenegro. I don't accept these 42nd, 43rd government, because these are the 13th, 14th governments since we introduced the multi-party system. But these 2 governments continued to do what they used to criticize when they were the opposition. Can you just provide or confirm that some companies such as electric power plant or mines in Kenya improved their operations to such an extent that they needed 30% more of employees? We have so much more power supply. Have we invested so much that we need so many new people? So the previous policy has continued, where we are not creating the society to adapt to the needs of citizens. It turns out that some citizens are, in a way, participants in that corruption. Haven't there always been? We need more whistleblowers. We have now many more than we used to have 30 years ago. Nobody could say anything. It's not true. They could always say things. There have always been position and opposition, and you could always tell what you wanted. Mr. Zogović said that people could not get a job in 32 years. That's absolutely not true. Tell me one single person who waited for a job for 32 years in a public administration or public institution. It's absolutely clear that we are not mature enough to become a member of the EU. We need to adopt some rules in order to become members. Have you adopted them regarding amendments to this law? When they ask about the law, the president, the opinion has been published. We have the opinion of the Venetian Commission, which says that that law should not be adopted. I have just read it in the media. I banned the loan financing of political parties. If I had reacted to the statement of my colleague Milan Knežević 2 nights ago, I would have written that I was against the attack of on Mr. Knežević, but then I saw the recording, and on the recording I saw that was not the case. Please go back to the topic of the conference. I represent the caution in politics, and that's not running away from the problem, but finding a rational solution. The situation that we have now will not be resolved by giving statements that we will amend the law on financing political entities and electoral campaigns. Until now, the law has been discussed on many occasions. The recommendations have been provided by the European Commission and so on. And there are a lot of shortcomings. Although it has been applied. I hope that now political parties represented here, I'm sorry there are no colleagues from the opposition, will sit around the table. Do you think it's fair to say that everything has been dismantled within these 2 years, or that within these 2 years of terrible mistakes and copying previous practices, things have just become more visible? There isn't a single institution that has survived. For example, the Constitutional Court, it was controlled and is still controlled by DPS. There are 2 persons who got in the Constitutional Court, who got flats, and they were allocated those flats by the executive power. They are the judges of the Constitutional Court. So they were obviously politically oriented. So let's discuss how individuals behaved in this society. Desanka Lopičić and Vladimir Stjepanović, they are judges of the Constitutional Court. Do you think we shouldn't mention their names? They tried to resolve their housing issue for 3 times in a row. So let's see how we personally refer to the system and to the budget. Why are you then interrupting me? I'm not interrupting you, I'm just giving room for you to speak. I mentioned the responsibility of the media. Don't put the media in the same basket. Well, you put us politicians in the same basket too. That's not true. I never said that you got a flat. Yes, but you criticized me for many other things. Telling me you're left, you're right, this and that. You know. Are among the leading, you are among the leading journalists in Montenegro. You need to give an example to everyone. But you cannot put people in the same basket. We are different. Okay, please continue. I still invite to dialogue. In this state, we lack dialogue. We cannot impose solutions. The society is so much divided that no solution can be a long-term solution. We can have, I don't know how many governments without dialogue. So we don't resolve anything with 41 MP. Mr. Zogović, is MANS a credible organization? You praised them in your introductory speech. Your undisputable moderating skills have to be mentioned, but at the beginning you prevented me from saying or emphasizing on what MANS has done in fighting organized crime, corruption, and all other negative phenomena. So I want to ask you this question. You said Mansk has done a lot, that they were pioneers in this society, but they said that your coalition did not report on all the costs from the electoral campaigns, especially TV Pink and company from Cyprus as donors. Can these be an indicator of prohibited donations? To tell you the truth, I was not involved in the financing of political campaign of our party. I think that everything was done in a lawful manner, but a credible organization says that these payments point to possible abuses. It's unusual that you know about the financing of other political parties, not about your own. I see that one of the most problematic parts of this law is the possibility of foreign influence in financing campaign through inadequate provisions of the law. But I think we have to resolve issues both about financing of political campaigns, but also about the issues referring to the inflow of foreign capital in funding NGOs, for example, or some other participants in the social life. Well, you can read the financial statements, they are all transparent. If there had been any irregularities, and if it is proved that such irregularities had been done or something had been done contrary to the law, I think that we should bear the consequences for unlawful behavior. I always wonder why Mr. Nimanbegu, that I appreciate very much, puts his reputation by defending the worst political results of the previous regime that he also participated in. It's very strange that Mr. Nimanbegu puts an equality sign between the political wing of the mafia that led Montenegro for 30 years and productive political forces that won the elections on the 30th of August after 3 decades of dictatorship. You just managed to win the elections, and that's it. And I don't know if you managed on your own, because the church created your government. They organized processions for you. Without the support of the church, we couldn't dismantle the regime. What do you think? You think that we should have denied the support at the time when all the social processes were focused on the law and the freedom of religion? The church actually, the church was also a partner to DPS. That's your friends and partners said. Even the former bishop said that. Sorry for these digressions, but well, without the support of the Serbian Orthodox Church, which a lot of people trust to in Montenegro, we couldn't win without their support. Now the church has gone back to its activities, their primary activities. You are not going back to your natural positions, but to state companies. You are not amending the laws as you promised. Although they have won the election, some centers did not allow establishment of the government based on the results of the elections. And now we face the consequences. Those who blocked democratic processes and didn't allow to form the government based on the freely expressed will of citizens bear the burdens why we are living the way we are living and what we are facing.
We don't want to discriminate you, Mr. Komnenić. In Montenegro, we have come to a moment when we talk about discrimination so easily, unlike some 15 years ago. I had to be innovative and I had to explain what discrimination is really about. You know, in Montenegro, everyone speaks about courage and nobility and, you know, honor. And I don't think that this is not only about 43rd government, it has always been the same, the phenomena that you mentioned. Let me reflect on what Mr. Zogović said about all of this. We, as Albanians, we feel discriminated because we don't have this function, because we are not part of ruling structures. You know, just imagine what we could have done in Ulcin if we were in power. We could have made 5 ports or else. So this is what politics was about, all the same over decades. I missed the joke. Sorry, we didn't hear. I just let you talk, no interventions. So how do you feel that in discrimination? I just talk about logics. We are missing many things. I don't want to dismiss your arguments. Yes. So as for building port in Ulcin, no one stops him from doing that. I believe he implies Prime Minister, but he is still controlled by DPS. Mr. Zogović, yes, your words were okay. What you said was okay, and this is the tone that we should set. But you said that I had a contact with the political wing of mafia. You know, yeah, you accused me of representing mafia, whereas 160,000 votes. Of the people who voted for me, you demeaned them. Yes, they are not speaking into microphones. Sorry. So our job is to work in the parliament, to do our job there. People vote for us for this, and the organizers here will ask the hitman on me because you have departed from the topic so far that we forgot what the topic was. Let's go back to the topic of the panel. To wind it up. So, what concretely? What do you plan to do? Please be as specific as possible. You have a clear task. An international community recommended, warned, and so we have to see how to stop manipulations in the field. And what are you going to do about this? I want to say that, as we mentioned several times so far, we are going to initiate a continuation of the work of the working group. What I'm worried about is that nobody mentioned the boycott of the parliament by DPS. You know that you taught them how to boycott. You should just teach them how to go to tents. Yet now I might feel nostalgic about the tents and I might join them. Yeah, you should please join all of you should join them. So the election legislation, electoral legislation in general, needs to be improved, and with the initiatives as a consequence of initiatives of months, among them we have managed to improve the legislation defining the role of in terms of reference of anti-corruption agency, also of state audit institution. DF, the party expenses, the party funding, dodgy funds. What does DF want to do? If there are valid arguments that this could happen, I was not involved in financial aspect of operations of the party, but if it ever is proven, I would support sanctions for anyone who has done wrong. What I learned is that I should present myself and present my views, but you should represent those of you who voted for you. That would be worthwhile. You should not present yourself and your views.
Gospodinu Koprivici, gospodinu Lekiću kažu još par rečenica, da onda da vas prepustim.
Now, Mr. Koprivica, thank you. It would be necessary to create political conditions to re-energize the work of the Committee for Comprehensive Electoral Reform. I think that we should, for sure, and I want to say my party is for that, to implement recommendations of the NGO sector concerning prevention of abuse of public funds and illegal party funding. So I think that the job is not as difficult as it might seem, as there is a problem with political will. And in 2019, we proposed some solutions, and some of them were adopted, not all of them, I'm afraid. And I believe it's the time to regain or re-earn the trust of public in the election process. And this would be one step towards it. We also need to have amendments of the law on residence, permanent and temporary residence, which are crucial for determining someone's right to vote. You have because due to these problems, this right has been violated in some cases. As for corruption related to the apartments and loans given to public officials, we were the party who actually voted for and worked on eliminating the system of awarding those benefits to any officials. And to Mr. Genci Nimanbegu, I want to say that we supported law on Valdanos, that was the law on restitution. And this was, I believe, a good move. And you know that Prime Minister is from Ulcin, as you said before. And it's good that we have Prime Minister coming from such a town. And we would like to have someone from Nikšić, and myself from Nikšić. I would like to see some others, because people from your town, implying Đukanović, who is from Nikšić, they come and stay. They won't leave. I would like to leave the space for Q&A. So through the amendments of the rules of procedure, we abolished the fines for those MPs who are on boycott. And this is what now plays otherwise, because now DPS is in opposition and they are in boycott. Mr. Lekić, just half a minute, 30 seconds or a minute, and others will take up. As for political will, in Sweden, they would never understand the political will as we apply it. So it is implied, they see the whole society and the representatives, their representatives, someone who has some will to do something, otherwise they wouldn't be there. So we were critical about the two governments, and we shouldn't pull all the blame on them. But what will happen with the latest affair of benefits, flats, and loans? Let's hope. We hope to see the epilogue. And past and present are walking hand in hand, unfortunately, with us, and so we see the things repeating themselves. We have absolutists who are not enlightening, so to say, absolutists, but absolutists related or with ties to mafia. Yeah, we have to change practices. This is beyond any doubt. The problem is whose initiative? Who should have initiative? This government doesn't have initiative. Parliamentary majority then votes for things, and then there are the criticisms or denials or hesitation, claiming that 41 is not enough for big changes. We need to have some transitional power that will enable the process to develop legitimately. If Milo Đukanović did otherwise, it would have been better. He stopped in the way of forming any government, any form of government. So the basic principle of each society and democracy is to have the power structures in place. How can we find a norm in the constitution where we could prohibit anyone to form the government during the mandate of the representatives as it is now? So someone should tell us where is the norm saying that there is a prohibition of forming a government at this time. So we have to remove this loophole to remove the bottleneck. Yeah. We've been talking about politics for too long. You're right. Past and present walk hand in hand. So we see that the majority didn't want to give you a mandate. Do you remember what Sahin Abulajic did? It's not related to this. Yes, it is. It was related to that. If we go into such details, irrelevant details, we won't be ending by the end of the day, let alone earlier. So he didn't give So as you said, there is no legal obstruction, legal restriction of that, right? We should first elect appoint the judges of the Constitutional Court. Without that, we can't do anything. I will give my vote to every candidate, if you, unless you have some objections. But would it be enough? Would it solve the situation? We will have 4 judges in place. How will we handle the government, the elections, etc.? We can't have elections without Constitutional Court. Let's wrap it up here. Now, questions and answers.
Može.
Poziciji dok je vlast, dugo će jahati tog monstruma. Sasvim je suprotno. Taj monstrum...
Here at the beginning, this monster that you're speaking about will ease all us up. I gave 2 examples. Vox Populi, Vox Dei is the rule of game when it comes to the elections. I'm Srđan Perić from the movement Preokret. In the first part, we applaud to the ambassador of Germany, and rightfully so, because he pointed to how a healthy democracy reacts. But if he had to implement these rules in practice, it would be very difficult. He stressed it's important to have the membership fee for political parties. It almost does not exist. And there's, of course, a step forward. The parties, of course, have to inform the competent state bodies about membership fees, but in practice, these are very low amounts. And that you have another thing. If citizens wanted to fund a political party through SMS, the law does not prohibit that, but you need to provide a unique citizen's number and address of every person who sends a donation through an SMS, which cannot function in practice. On the other hand, you have access to the media, and you cannot provide it if you are prevented from getting money, let's say through SMS or in other similar ways. So do people want to dismantle this political monstrum, a political system? A part of what the parties get is paid to the media for promotion, for marketing. But if the money paid by the state to the political parties was provided to the media for reporting, the media would be much more open and better in informing. Nobody is willing to invest little steps to take the lever from this political monster to the benefit of general interest. Maybe some people want to give a comment on that. Any other questions? Please introduce yourself. I'm Maria Popović-Kalinić from the Center for Civil Freedoms, Tegas. Thanks, Mans, for this conference and for the invitation. Thanks to all of you. I just have one question. It seems that the law will not change by themselves unless the system is deblocked. And I would like to hear from all of you, who is responsible for the blockage of the system that we are now facing? Any more questions? I would like to go back to the topic. Would someone personally, on behalf of your party or as an MP, launch amendments to this law. I understand there is readiness, but if you waited for someone's initiative, I'm afraid a lot of time will pass. So will someone personally or on behalf of your party would initiate something in the Parliament of Montenegro so that we could have some results from this conference? Let's say, start from this question, the last one. Since we are all in favor, there are 5 of us that can initiate amendments to the law, because we have already publicly said here that we are in favor of amending the law. I would like not to be alone in that, but to have the support of my colleagues here. We can launch this initiative. Is it acceptable to you? I feel like being in front of a prosecutor. Well, prosecutors are at some other addresses. I absolutely agree, but I think it would be good to have a wider initiative. We should all try to reach a compromise and adopt the law with 2/3 majority. Well, you can launch an initiative and then we can get at where you are suggesting. It's not easy. Mr. Koprivica, is it acceptable for you? You earlier said that everything is acceptable. It is absolutely acceptable. It is even acceptable that even without waiting for the decisions of the Committee for the Electoral Reforms, we propose amendments to the law that will define or take into account all these recommendations coming from the civil sector, referring to the prevention of abuses of public resources and abuses in financing of political campaigns. So now we have 2 MPs for now. I want to say once again that in 2019, we proposed amendments to the law on financing political entities and electoral campaigns. I don't think we don't need some, big stories about it, because we have already talked a lot at different events in the Parliament too. And as an MP, I want to say that I'm ready to accept on behalf of my political party, without waiting for some other initiatives from the Parliament, although that's the best way, but we are ready to implement these things or to propose amendments without waiting for these wider initiatives, especially because we may have possible extraordinary elections soon and then presidential elections with social benefits, budget reserves, and so on. Nobody should take the advantage. Nobody should use that. I belong to a political party that has never been accused of using different funds. We even proposed prohibition of payments from the current budget reserves. The last change was adopted owing to my amendment, personal amendment. So it's absolutely acceptable. I propose that amendment on behalf of our party club, and we demonstrated that we are not interested in getting money from budget reserves. Mr. Lekić, what do you think about this idea? And also you can answer the second question, who is responsible for blocking the system? I've already said that I'm in favor of the amendments to the law, and all these initiatives coming from the civil sector are welcome. As a party club, we accepted the amendment to the change mentioned by Mr. Koprivica. Now we are working on the amendment to the law on residence. So at least we can deblock Shavnik if he cannot deblock the whole state. Let's hope that this spectacle going on there should be stopped. The political system, monster, we are hostages of that, and if the state is consolidated in an elementary sense, a lot of things should be reviewed, including constitutions. We shouldn't improvise there. It's a serious matter, but it has turned out that there are some problems. Reviewing the constitution is not a taboo, of course. Who is to be blamed here? Ms. Dominic knows, mentioned those who, and I mentioned those who are absent there, so I cannot now list all of them, but it is clear now who is blocking the state with lots of protagonists. The Constitutional Court is the way out of this dramatic crisis, not to resolve the problem, but the Constitutional Court may assess whether a law is constitutional or unconstitutional, whether the president violated the law. And the Constitutional Court can resolve a lot of issues. DPS is in favor of the elections, but they don't want to contribute to the election of the judges of the Constitutional Court. In 2015, as opposition, knowing that candidates for the Constitutional Court were people from DPS, not all of them, but majority of them, and we still voted for them because it was in the general interest not to block the state. And I may have been wrong, but I don't regret it. We had the consensus, we had the constitutional principle of the qualified majority, which could not be reached without the opposition. I don't want to praise the opposition from 2015, but this is an impertinent, irresponsible prevention of forming the Constitutional Court, and nobody has the courage and the brave and honest Montenegro to say that a judge is compromised or unprofessional or has a lack of expertise. The MPs spoke highly of those candidates. So you said everybody realizes, but maybe Mr. Nimanbegu has a position contrary to yours. Our colleague Petar is right. We are creating a monster here, a system that will somehow ruin itself. Our colleagues are now talking about boycott of the opposition in this mandate, but they boycotted the previous convocation of the parliament for 6 or 7 years because of the budget issues. We also had a boycott in 2016. There weren't enough MPs in the parliament to agree on anything. Now, do we have the majority from the monastery or the majority composed out of the monastery? This is kind of a provocation, but the majority out of the monastery wanted in summer last year to impose their own solutions, and the other majority from the monastery also provide solutions from the Constitutional Court. So what's wrong? Why did all the MPs who refuse to vote for these members of the Constitutional Court used to say they're great? So what's wrong with Nebojša Vučinić? That's what I asked. So I'm asking, what are your objections to the current candidate? I voted for Nebojša Vučinić, but should we stick to that or shall we go further? We, in the other room, we signed a memorandum of minority parties, and I said then that if memorandum meant taking from the table only the things that are okay for you, then it's not good. You are talking about 4 candidates that you imposed. We need an agreement. An agreement is much more important. It's important to elect members of the Constitutional Court by consensus. So it doesn't have to be today, but within 3 months. That's the strategy of the president of the state. The worse, the better. Mr. Nimanbegu is not the author of that strategy. Vanja Čalović asked a question. We are not speaking here about the constitutional system, constitutional court and blocking the system. That's not the topic of the conference. We have cooperated a lot with the NGOs, and I'm glad that I can participate in these processes. We can play the game of initiating amendments or withdrawing documents and whatever, but that will not provide results. That's it for this panel. Thank you for the participation. Thank you for your patience.